Kicking off the list at number 10, we have Man-Thing. Dr. Ted Sallis made his first appearance in Savage Tales issue 1. He was a biochemistry professor who'd worked at Empire State University, and he was originally recruited by the US Army to help with Project Sulphur. The goal was to help find a solution so soldiers could survive biochemical warfare. So Sallis helped develop something called Serum SO2, and it gave immunity to all toxic biochemicals. Only the thing was, it turned these users into these, well, man-things. AIM eventually caught wind of this and wanted their sticky fingers in the mix, so after walking into an AIM ambush, Ted made a break for it to go to Dr. Kurt Connor's lab. But while on the move, he injected the last bit of serum into himself, burned the evidence, and then crashed his car into a swamp. Now, a swamp that has magical energy mixed with this one-of-a-kind super serum, now we get this guy. We get this Man-Thing, and he's awesome. As far as super soldiers go, he's maybe the most unique. He could ooze himself through fences. I mean, come on. He can control plant life and can fly on his own. I mean, you could try punching Man-Thing, but your fist would probably go through him. Yuck. And before we continue on with this list of super soldiers, guys, if you want to go ahead and give this video a like, that would be awesome. It's super helpful for our page. You guys are the best. Thanks so much for watching. Now let's get right back into this list. No wasted time. Number 9, Mockingbird. Barbara Morse. She made her comic book debut back in Astonishing Tales issue 12. She studied at Georgia Institute of Technology, specializing as well in biology. She worked with Dr. William Calvin on Project Gladiator. Now, the project was set up to recreate the Super Soldier Serum that created Captain America, but during this time, S.H.I.E.L.D. trained Bobby to be a spy, with a cool nickname as well, like Agent 19. I mean, she was killing it with gymnastics, so they made a pretty good call there. She became the hero Mockingbird in the 80s with Marvel Team Up issue 95. And in 2011, she finally became a super soldier in the New Avengers issue 13. When she was on the verge of dying, she was injected with this other version of the serum, and it saved her. And at the same time, it of course gave her super soldier abilities, which are always fun. Number 8, Sentry. Making his first appearance in Sentry issue 1, Robert Reynolds was a struggling addict who made his way into a laboratory and discovered something called the Golden Serum. And this was of course another version of the Super Soldier Serum, but it was of course a little different. He consumed it and then he got the surprise of a lifetime when he was then given the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns. That plus a homemade costume equals, well, superhero. Let's do it. Robert fought alongside the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and then of course the New Avengers. Things changed for Robert when Norman Osborn decided to put together a team of his own. That team was the Dark Avengers. I feel like we're getting close to seeing the Dark Avengers in the MCU. Either that or the Thunderbolts, one of the two. Hopefully Thunderbolts. It feels like Thunderbolts. Number 7, Red Skull. He made his first debut back in Captain America Comics issue 7. Johann Schmidt, aka the Red Skull, has been a pretty powerful villain in the MCU as well. After all, he's now the protector of the Soul Stone, which is cool, but it's a little boring. Definitely looks a little boring up there. But his origins are the opposite of boring. Now, of course, being the main enemy to Captain America, Red Skull has too dabbled in the serum department. Now, most of the time, he was just a great villain. He didn't necessarily need a serum to do his job. He was an evil mastermind. He was doing great. Now, it wasn't until Dr. Zola transferred his subconscious to a clone of Captain America, and now he was an evil genius who just so happened to be super strong as well, which is just what we need. So in Captain America issue 350, after months of manipulation from the resurrected Red Skull, Steve Rogers confronts and defeats his replacement, John Walker, another super soldier who I'll mention later on in this list. He also had to battle the Red Skull, but at this point it's a little tough because the Red Skull is now a clone Steve Rogers. I mean, it's exciting, but it's also a little confusing when you're looking at it on the page. So not only does he look like Steve Rogers, but he's just as strong. With the help of his dust of death, his red mask shrunk, and now that was his permanent face. So it was a little easy to tell who was who after that point. Yeah, lovely. Number 6, Omega Red. Arkady Rosevich, aka Omega Red, first appeared in comics with X-Men Volume 2, Issue 4. He was born a Russian mutant, and he was pretty intense right off the bat. His family was afraid of him even without the powers really kicking in just yet. He grew up and joined the Russian army, but he also dabbled in the life of crime on the side. That's how most of these guys do it. Now, the Red Army caught on to all these horrible crimes. They started figuring out that he was behind them, and they tried to execute him, but his mutant powers didn't allow that from happening. Dazzler once described him as an Omega level mutant. He's not to be played around with. So they figured, hey, this guy might be perfect to test a new Russian Super Soldier Serum. He already had this ability called the Death Factor, and basically the Death Factor is where Omega Red can emit lethal death spores from his body, and he has to get rid of them too, or else he'll just harm himself. So he was already this crazy mutant, and then he got the serum on top of that, and now he's got super strength, super speed, and he was also given metal tentacles in his arms too. Number 5, Bucky Barnes. Near the end of World War II, Bucky and Cap were trying to disarm a bomb on a plane while taking down Baron Zemo. Now the bomb went off, hurling Steve and Bucky into the water, But Cap, he was fine. He came out of this pretty easy. I'll explain what happened to him later on in this list, although you probably already know. He remained frozen. He just hung out and chilled. Literally. But Bucky wasn't so lucky. His body fell into the freezing waters, and at the time, a Soviet spy submarine was in the area crossing the English Channel, so they scooped him up, fixed him up a fancy new arm, brainwashed him, and turned him into this brutal assassin. With the help of Hydra's new variant of the Super Soldier Serum, he now has all these incredible abilities that make him a fierce fighter. But he doesn't remember how he knows these things or how he can do these things. That's what makes Bucky so unique in the MCU and in the comics. This is Steve's right-hand man. This is heartbreaking. One of the biggest turning points of Marvel Comics was the introduction of the Winter Soldier. I love seeing him start to settle on the good guy's side. I mean, fixing up the boat with Sam, tossing the vibranium frisbee back and forth. It's great. They're just chatting about life. It's lovely. It's great to see how far Sebastian Stan's come in the MCU as well. Like, shout out to Sebastian Stan. He's killing him. Super underrated still. Number 4, Nomad. Jack Monroe entered the comics with Young Men issue 24, and during the time in history where Cap had been frozen, they used Jack to explain some of the time between those big stories. So in Captain America 155, the secret origin of Captain America, we get some answers. So we have William Burnside as well. He was a professor who was inspired by Captain America, and he came into contact with a Super Soldier Serum, and he and Jack Monroe became the new Cap and Bucky. Jack was the Bucky and William was Cap. They both took the serum and they both got enhanced abilities. Now they did some good work as a team, but the only thing was a year later things started to go wrong with the Super Serum. Cap started to become a paranoid schizophrenic, so the government froze him. They put him in a cryogenic suspension, because that's what you do to super soldiers when you don't know what to do with them. He went from being Captain America to becoming the villain. I mean, it sounds all too familiar right now in the MCU. William and his Bucky Barnes sidekick Jack Monroe were both in custody of Dr. Faustus, and they brainwashed William to become the Grand Director, the leader of the hate group called the National Force, and Jack went on to become Nomad. Number 3, US Agent. John Walker is causing quite the stir in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and in the comics, he of course was no different. After he paid a visit to the Power Broker, the Madman now has super abilities. Now the Power Broker is being teased throughout Falcon and Winter Soldier currently, but what do they do exactly? What's their deal? Well, they trade their knowledge of technology for high-paying customers who want to undergo this risk to get some sort of super ability. It's like a gamble. Half these people don't even survive. More than half of them don't survive. Issue 333 of Captain America was titled The Replacement. This is when the government is weighing their options on who should be the next to lead the nation. Now this is after Steve Rogers stepped away, so they go with the guy who just launched a dude off a building, this crazy US agent John Walker, who at the time was first introduced as Super Patriot, so he was always on board with the super life in one way or another. Number 2, Isaiah Bradley. Currently played by Carl Lumbly in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Isaiah Bradley made his comic book debut in Truth, Red, White, and Black issue 1. This was after the US Army lost the secrets of their Super Soldier Serum with Dr. Erskine. Now they still wanted to create more super soldiers, so they did this. Colonel Walker Price and Dr. Wilfred Nagel took 300 soldiers, including Isaiah Bradley, against their will and used them as test subjects for this new serum. It was awful. They had sent the soldiers' family members invalid letters stating that they were no longer alive. They were so shady and awful and mean to them. Now only a handful survived this process, and they went on to be this covert Black Ops team. But after a few missions, Isaiah was the only survivor left. Now this is one of the most compelling elements of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, is the introduction of Isaiah Bradley. It's emotional, it's gripping, it's truthful, and in the most recent episode, Isaiah reflects on the times that he would cross paths with the Winter Soldier, and how his use with the serum was the only reason that he was surviving those encounters. And finally, number 1, you guessed it, Steve Rogers. Came into Marvel Comics, of course, with Captain America issue 1. Now he grew up during the Great Depression in New York City. He was a scrawny little man, but he had a big heart nonetheless. Now both of his parents had passed away while he was still young, and he tried to enlist in the army, but he was rejected because of his frailty. Now when General Chester Phillips overheard him talking about how much he wanted to serve, he deemed the boy was the chosen one for this top secret project called Operation Rebirth. This is where Dr. Abraham Erskine, and the creator of the serum, injected Steve, and voila, now we have Captain America. Steve was put through physical and tactical training afterwards. He even became a skilled gymnast in the meantime, because you know, flips are cool. His first mission as a super soldier was to suit up in the red, white, and blues and take down the Red Skull. Now the mantle of Captain America is finally being handed over to Sam Wilson, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and we're looking forward to seeing more Captain America stories come to life on the big screen, this time with Anthony Mackie holding the shield. Kicking the list off at number 10, we have Anti-Cap. Now his true name remains a mystery, but this Cap made his first comic book appearance in Captain America and the Falcon issue 1. Now this man tragically lost his girlfriend in the Oklahoma City bombings, so he needed something to focus on. so now he enlisted in the US Navy. But similar to Steve Rogers, he was rejected because he was unfit for the job. Physically. Now, while this was happening, the Navy was trying to recreate their own serum, of course, but this time it was in the form of a patch, an AVX patch. Same deal though, this would enhance the subject's strength and endurance significantly. Now, it wasn't working, so the project's commanding officer, Admiral James Westbrook, straight up tried to shoot the guy because it was a lost cause. But in doing so, this near-death experience kick-started all these fantastic abilities. So the Navy then deployed this new super soldier on a mission to Afghanistan, then he went to Syria, and then he went to Iraq. So he was working with the Navy, he was doing a decent job. So after years of these missions, he of course got caught up in SHIELD business and tracked down Falcon back to America. Now these 14 issues are quite exciting, and at first, Cap actually thinks that this guy is his long-lost Bucky, the real Cap, Steve Rogers. And then when MODOK and AIM get into the picture, it gets absolutely wild. They stage Anti-Cap's death, then he helps them, then he goes against them. It's a ride, you gotta check it out. And before we continue on with this list, guys, if you wanna go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, that would be great. It's super helpful for our channel. You guys are the best. Thanks so much for watching. Let's hop right back into this list. Number 9, Flag Smashers. In Disney's Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the Flag Smashers are a rebel group, but in the comics, it's just one guy. Karl Morgenthau made his first comic book appearance in Captain America issue 312. Back in December 1985. He was the son of a wealthy Swiss banker who turned into a diplomat, and as a kid, Karl was never able to settle while he was moving around with his father. And over time, this naturally turned Karl into an introvert. So he was forced to grow stronger, mentally, spiritually, and physically. He had a lot of anger growing inside of him, so he turned that anger and energy into martial arts training at the age of 12. After his father lost his life in a riot outside of the Latvian embassy, he took all of his inheritance and put it towards this new future. He believed his father was too passive in the way he tried to obtain world peace. So he became a mace-wielding supervillain who rides on a flying cart. Because that's a good alternative. His name is Flag Smasher, so the first time we see him in action is when he heads over to the Acme Flag Company to do some property damage. But in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we meet a version of this character, Karli Morgenthau, and she's part of a group called Flag Smashers. This group is 8 individuals who survived the blip, and with the help of some stolen Super Soldier Serum, it made for a really entertaining 6 episodes. Karli was a great villain. She was young, hurt, and angry, and Sam Wilson almost got through to her a few times, before John Walker came in and messed it all up. Number 7, Destroyer. Kevin Marlowe made his first comic book appearance in Mystic Comics issue 6. He was an American journalist who had gotten inside Germany to investigate the horrors within, and sadly he was captured by Germans. Whilst inside, he crossed paths with Professor Erich Schmidt, this German scientist. Now, he gave Kevin a version of the serum that would later be responsible for Steve Rogers. So now Kevin obtained these enhanced abilities. Step 2, of course, was to break out, avenge Schmidt, and go on a punchy rampage. Now, of course, with a new look and a name to go along, the Destroyer, quite fitting, I'd say. Years down the road as an old man, this super soldier didn't want to turn back the clock and have one last dance with Peggy Carter. No. Instead, he was dedicated to taking out all of his enemies. I get the whole Destroyer alias now. That checks out. That makes sense. Number 6, Warhawk. Mitchell Tanner first entered Marvel Comics with Marvel Premiere issue 23. Now, we meet Mitchell when he was critically injured in the Vietnam War, so good guy Dr. Burstein used a variation of the Super Soldier Serum in attempts to save his life. Now, with most of these super soldiers, even in part 1, they all come out the same more or less. But Tanner's results with the serum made his skin turn into this granite-like substance. He of course has super strength, but his appearance was quite different. The stresses of seeing his home village in Vietnam being destroyed, plus the tragic end of his late wife Liu, he was mentally unstable, this poor guy. So now Warhawk, yes, we need a fancy new nickname of course, Warhawk became an assassin for the CIA and went on to fight Iron Fist. Then later he was sent to take out Atom Smasher, and then he was soon hired by the Hellfire Club to go toe-to-toe with the X-Men. Eventually this guy was handled. He traded in his skills and worked for SHIELD in exchange for a reduced sentence. Not a bad deal. Number 5, Luke Cage. He made his first appearance in Hero for Hire issue 1. Mike Coulter did a fantastic job playing him in live action, and I really hope they don't recast him for future Marvel projects. Just bring him in. Kind of seems like he can already do the job. I don't know. So when he first entered comics, he was put in prison for a crime he did not commit. And he agreed to volunteer for this experimental treatment, of course, based off that original Super Soldier Serum. Dr. Noah Burstein recruited Luke for his cell regeneration experiment, the same guy responsible for Warhawk, who I just mentioned. So the doctor immersed Cage in this electrical field, and when he left Luke unattended for a hot minute, in comes Rackham trying to take out Cage. Now, he overloaded the machine, but instead this just made Cage stronger. So now he has unbreakable skin and exceptional strength. Way to go, Rackham. Good work. Number 4, Black Widow. Natalia Romanova first entered comics in Tales of Suspense issue 52. She was an enemy of Iron Man's at first, and she was this KGB assassin. Her training in the Red Room made her a fierce warrior already, skilled in martial arts, plus the fact that she's a skilled acrobat. Yeah, we have a pretty badass spy. Now, part of her Black Widow program was her receiving a variant of the Super Soldier Serum. Now, this gave her an improved immune system along with enhanced durability. Now, the serum is actually the reason Natalia barely ages in these stories, just like Scarlett Johansson. Maybe she got the serum as well. That would make sense. Her and Paul Rudd would definitely make sense. On top of these abilities, she comes equipped with a black bodysuit made of a Kevlar-like substance, and her wrists rock these 2 bracelets, and they fire off the Widow's Bite, which is a pleasant 30,000 bolts. Right to your neck. It's gotta feel good. So if these don't stop you dead in your tracks, those bracelets are also equipped with tear gas cartridges, and her belt contains these discs with firepower of 4 pounds of TNT. So you'd never want to cross paths with Black Widow, that's for sure. We're still eagerly awaiting her solo film because of delays with COVID, but I wonder if they're gonna throw in a variation of the serum in this origin story. I know it takes place a little bit in the past, of course, so I wonder if we'll see that. Number 3, Eli Bradley. Now, I mentioned in part 1 of this list a super soldier named Isaiah Bradley. He was a grounding, emotional addition to the MCU in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And in the show, when Sam Wilson would chat with Isaiah, we caught glimpses of his grandson. The young actor Elijah Richardson recently dropped a hint on his future with Marvel after the finale aired. Check it out. So it looks like we may truly be on our way to the Young Avengers, which is super exciting. We have Wiccan, Speed, Hawkeye, it's all coming together. It's great. Now, his first comic book appearance was in Young Avengers 1. Now, he wanted to follow in the path of his grandfather, so he suited up as Patriot. Only thing was, he had lied. He didn't actually have abilities. He had no powers at all, until he received a blood transfusion from his grandfather, Isaiah. That, combined with his skills in parkour and combat, makes for a worthy Young Avenger, that's for sure. I really hope we see him in live action soon. He's amazing. He uses a replica of Cap's original shield, and his suit is a combination of Bucky and Isaiah Bradley's Cap uniform. It's great. Number 2, Taskmaster. Anthony Masters, the villain in Black Widow that we're so excited to see after this long delay, made his comic book debut back in Avengers issue 195. Anthony Masters is a former SHIELD agent who turned into a mercenary and assassin. Now, his whole thing is he can replicate your physical skills. He has photographic reflexes. That's why in the trailer for Black Widow, we see him studying her fight moves on the screen. That's literally all it takes, and he's got it locked down. He became a teacher based out of the Taskmaster's Academy to train villains, henchmen, and even trained US agent how to use Cap's shield in the comics. Now, of course, after injecting himself with an experimental version of the Super Soldier Serum, all these abilities were just amplified. I can't wait to see this guy on the big screen. He's one of my favorite villains, and the combat that we're gonna get with this movie is gonna be so good. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have Todd Ziller. Okay, this one is pretty wild. Okay, so Todd appeared for the first time in Avengers Volume 6. He was a US corporal and was the test subject for Project Troubleshooter. Again, another attempt to recreate Erskine's serum. So sometimes these things work, and sometimes you end up like this. Now, this serum was a hodgepodge of other transformative substances. So we combined gamma, mutant growth hormones, Pym particles, and the Connors formula. So yeah, we got more than we bargained for this time around. Todd turned into this giant reptile, hence the new alias, American Kaiju. And yes, he's as unstoppable as you would think. I mean, just look at him. Good luck. What, are you gonna throw a shield at him? You gonna taser him in the neck? No way. This guy's a monster. Kicking off the list at number 10, Hawkeye. Now, this is Hawkeye from the Ultimates, when he first appeared in Ultimates issue 7. This is when the Avengers confronted the new Ultimates, and it ended up in this massive underground battle in New York. Now, Hawkeye got stuck under a car when Giant Man squished it. Now, he wasn't a super soldier at this point, so this probably didn't feel too good on the bones. The Avengers were then put on the USS Jimmy Carter. Now, this is when things start to get interesting. While they were there, Hawkeye and the others ingested Cash's serum, becoming super soldiers for a hot minute. Then they were able to rescue Nick Fury, but eventually they were captured by Gregory Stark and tossed overboard. So he was a super soldier for a brief amount of time. I feel like Jeremy Renner is a super soldier in real life. I don't know, I get that vibe. And before we continue on with this list, guys, if you want to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, that would be awesome. It really does help our channel out quite a bit here. You're the best. Thank you so much for your support. Now let's get right back to this part 3. Number 9, Red Guardian. Okay, this next one we're still waiting to see on the big screen. David Harbour is playing Alexei Shostakov in Black Widow, and in the comics, he's currently Ronin as of 2010. But in Avengers issue 43, Alexei was first introduced to readers, of course, as Red Guardian. He was one of the best pilots pilots in the Soviet Union, and he married the famous ballerina Natalia Romanova. Now, the KGB made new plans for Alexei when he was on his way to a flight mission. He was then told that he could no longer speak to anybody he knows, friends, families, and new love, Natalia. She was actually told that he died in an explosion during a test flight. Now, Natalia wanted to do something worthwhile with her life afterwards, so she became the Black Widow spy. And they kind of were hoping on this. The KGB wanted this to happen. So Alexei, of course, would go on to become the Red Guardian, the Soviet Union's version of Captain America, and over the course of his training, he became cold, ruthless, and cruel, much different than before. He appeared in Ultimate Nightmare issue 4 as a super soldier, but he was taken out the next issue. Number 8, Nuke. He made his first appearance in Daredevil 232. Meet Frank Simpson. He was a Black Ops agent in Vietnam War, and he's got an American flag for a face. He's pretty insane. He's ruthless. Every page, he's literally just screaming and attacking people. See, Wolverine actually tortured him and gave him a trigger phrase as well. That trigger phrase was no VC. That was his version of freight car logging and homecoming. A little bit shorter. I feel like Zemo would have had a much easier time with this one. So when someone says no VC, Frank goes crazy when he's not supposed to go crazy. All thanks to Logan. Awesome. Yeah, Wolverine made Frank undergo the Weapon Plus program, even giving the super soldier some cybernetic parts as well. And hey, if sheer force doesn't get the job done, Frank can always rely on his trusty Betsy. Betsy is the huge submachine gun that he carries around. I'm kind of glad we didn't see this super soldier in the MCU. He seems like a bit much. Number 7, Iron Maiden. Now for this one, I'm not referring to Melinda Vostokov's Iron Maiden, but I'm talking about the USSR version of Iron Maiden, because it feels like we're on that track. This is a part 3 after all. You can find her in The Order, Volume 2, Issue 1. Now the Iron Maiden was part of the 1960 Soviet super soldier group that was placed into cryogenic sleep. Now she was there chilling, pun intended, until there was a nuclear attack on American soil. So after an explosion went off because of the Infernal Man on the West Coast, she then woke up along with the other super soldiers, but of course she didn't last too long as they were defeated by the Order. Just the costume alone, I had to include her. She's so sick. Number 6, Abomination. Emil Blonsky, aka Abomination, made his first appearance in Tales to Astonish issue 90. Now he was a communist Croatian Yugoslavian spy that infiltrated the US Air Force base in New Mexico, where Banner and General Ross were. Now in the MCU, we see him make quite a mess. Abomination is a pretty cool villain. We haven't seen him since, but I'm kind of hoping he comes back soon. See, Ross was hell-bent on recreating the Super Soldier Serum that Erskine took to the grave, and this soldier was the test subject to that new variant. Whenever you hear the word variant and test subject, I'm like, I've heard the word variant too much in the news lately. I can't even do it. So the serum mixed with Banner's blood turned him into, well, an abomination. I'm still waiting for him to come back into the current MCU, but I think they're waiting for some Thunderbolts action to happen with General Ross. I feel like that's going to be a big one for the She-Hulk show, for sure. Number 5, Nick Fury. Of course we have to mention Nick Fury. Of course. He entered the Ultimates and Marvel Team Up issue 5, and Nick Fury would soon take over as director of S.H.I.E.L.D. And his first plan was to bring back the Super Soldier program, which actually resulted in the creation of the Ultimates. Fun fact. His origins are pretty wild as well. He fought for the US in World War II and was taken by force to be the next test subject for Project Rebirth. So when he was injected with his new serum, it gave him, of course, super strength, and then in turn he freed himself and other prisoners, and they just got out of there. So now he's got quite the power behind those punches. He's disease resistant and he's got enhanced senses. Just a super Nick Fury. I mean, that's pretty much Samuel L. Jackson. I feel like Samuel L. Jackson's a super soldier in real life. That would check out. He doesn't really age. Number 4, the Hulk. First appearing in Ultimate Marvel Team Up issue 2, Ultimate Hulk is wild. Dare I say, more intense than our other guy. So back in the day, Banner wanted to be just like Captain America, back in his science days. He wanted to be big and strong. He actually told his mentor, Dr. Leonard Williams, this. And then since his student days at Cambridge University, he was committed to duplicating the Super Soldier Serum in hopes that he can use it on himself. So when Nick Fury, the first super soldier that I mentioned, gathered the best genetic engineers to recreate the serum, Bruce was amongst them. Now, Bruce actually thought that he figured out the serum at first. He just didn't tell the group because he didn't want them getting credit for his work. That happens quite often in group projects in high school, so it's fair. These people exist, they're still out there. He wanted proper credit, so he just went ahead and tested the super soldier serum out on himself and became Ultimate Hulk. Now down the road, and this is what makes Ultimate Hulk stand out, later on, Bruce decided to make more serum. So he mixed Super Soldier Serum with the Hulk Serum and then injected himself, and then he became this gray, monstrous Hulk. And his first plan of attack was to go after Freddie Prinze Jr. Nope, not kidding. Number 3, Masterman. Wilhelm Lohmer. This guy is, okay, let's talk about him. He was chosen for the German version of the Super Soldier Serum. It's a little obvious looking at him what kind of super soldier he is. He made his first appearance in Giant-Sized Invaders, issue 1. Now he's pretty similar to Captain America in the sense of his abilities. He met Captain America for the first time in Wakanda when he and the Red Skull invasion force was trying to get their hands on vibranium for the Germans. Now luckily Black Panther took him down and stopped him, but he was still able to survive. It wasn't until Cable issue 51 until Masterman met his fate. Yeah, I don't think we need that guy running around in the MCU or in any comic book for that instance. Let's keep him out of there. Number 2, Warrior Woman. Julia Koenig made her first appearance in Invaders issue 16. She was a spy during World War II, and then she captured and hypnotized an American, William White, and he just happened to have secrets to the Super Soldier formula, and she got them out. Now, despite multiple warnings on not creating a do-it-yourself serum, she still went ahead and tried it out. So while this was happening, an explosion went off, and then Julia was also turned into a super soldier, just this big, loud event. Now, her first mission was to help the Red Skull and head to Wakanda, that same trip that I mentioned earlier. Now, she was actually set to marry Masterman. What a nightmare that would have been. Because she was really impressing everybody, and then he was impressing everybody, so they're like, hey, you guys should both just get together, because you're both insane. Now, part of the ceremony just had to include the assassination of the invaders, because, you know, that's what weddings do. Instead of putting on show, it's like, yeah, let's take some people out. But luckily, the final vows were never spoken, as the reserve members of the invaders came in to save the day. That would have been the worst wedding ever. After the war, Julia was put into cryogenic suspension, and she wasn't recovered until after the German reunification. The long freeze actually gave Warrior Woman some brain damage as well, which complicated her recovery. And finally, number 1, Nico. Perhaps one of the most shocking scenes in Falcon and the Winter Soldier has to be when Nico bites the bullet. It's brutal. This happens at the end of episode 4, right when John Walker, US agent, goes crazy, and he ends his life in a public execution way. It's not good at all. It was a huge moment for fans while we were watching, and to make it worse, Nico was a super soldier and a member of the Flag Smashers. Now, the thing that makes Nico stand out and why we have to talk about him a little bit more, he was a huge Captain America fan growing up. One of the OG super soldiers, he looked up to him. And then after the blip, Nico joined Carly Morgenthau's cause and helped her steal some supplies. Now, he wasn't the worst super soldier ever by any means. I mean, clearly after seeing this list, you would agree. But I'm betting he never expected Cap's shield to be the weapon that ended his life. Well, guys, there you have it. Thank you so much for watching. I've been your host, Taylor McWaters. Thanks so much for joining us on Top 10 Nerd. Please leave us a comment down below if there's any future lists you'd like to see, or if there's any super soldiers that we forgot on this list. Comment down below and we'll be sure to get around to them. You guys are the best. Have an amazing week, and we'll see you next time. Peace.